isn't too fired up about selling their companies now and already sending out their decks, because I want to talk about our thoughts on how we can grow our industry and the AI visibility gap out there and make all our companies more valuable, and for those communicators out there, make the PR profession more impactful and carry on through more of that. But first, I want to step back and just remember that communications has always evolved with technology. This is how ChatGPT imagines Julius Caesar to have been writing his letters during his campaigns in Gaul, and enabled by technologies like paper and roads, he was able to get it back to Rome and read out loud. I was really curious to find out what measurement framework they were using to figure out how many people listened to these letters being read, but that might have been lost to history. That was before AMEC was founded. Soon, though, the printing press was invented, newspapers, more importantly, our profession really found a whole new use for scissors and glue to be able to put all this data together and measure how many press hits that we got. Then TV, radio came along. We've all lived through first the internet revolution and then the social media revolution. I started Muck Rack 15 years ago, just as social media was getting started, and kind of saw that, hey, the way news is being distributed is totally changing. And now, finally, we're up in a new era here, the era of answers, thinking about how AI and these answer engines, LLMs, inform the people that we want to reach. A lot's been said about it. Could argue it's good, it's bad, but it's definitely here, and we need to figure out what to do about it. So this is kind of the old approach that people use to find information. Googling, I know a bunch of you joined my colleague Natan for a run this morning, so we did a Google search for shoes under $200, and you can see that the Google environment, it was so great when it came out, and now it's all sponsored ads. And I think a lot of people got disillusioned with Google. And that's what's led now the majority of consumers to integrate AI into their purchase experience. It's already a majority, and this technology is less than 4 years old. And more than that, they're using it for price comparisons and really integrating AI into every part of their purchase journey. But it's not just products. If you're a tourism board, it's looking on where to go vacation. If it's just an organization where you want to build trust with the public, people are asking AI about your organization. And this is kind of the view you have to be thinking about with people, that they're going to ask AI, hey, what's the best running shoe under $200? And AI is going to start their journey. Most people aren't going to buy solely based on the AI recommendation, but that's the first impression that people are going to get now. Now, I want to talk a lot more about AI, and we all know this is, I think the jury was out. Is it GEO or AEO, Generative Engine Optimization, Answer Engine Optimization? I know AMEC is about to put out their GEO principles, so I guess that settles it that it is GEO. And being here in Ireland and being among such old Celtic myths, I do want to talk about the ancient myths of GEO and figure out which are real and which we have to reevaluate. Now, I've heard a lot of folks say, you can't influence LLMs. ChatGPT, Claude, how can you influence them? And I think a lot of that's based on the early experience that people had with these AI platforms, where originally they were trained on a set of data, all the books they could get their hands on, all the web information they could get their hands on, anything in the public domain. And when people first tried ChatGPT, they'd ask it, hey, what's going on with this new thing? And it'd say, sorry, I was only trained up till this date, and that's all I know. Now, the truth is, PR, it probably already did influence those LLMs, because even with the trained data, it's looking at lots of news articles that people in this room might have placed or their colleagues might have placed and they measured. But there was no way to get the attribution on that, and that cycle time between every few months waiting for a new model to be trained, it's just something that doesn't really work for most businesses. But that all changed with real-time retrieval, and it's been kind of a renaissance moment for PR and comms, because with this, you can pull up ChatGPT now, ask what has happened in the last 15 minutes in the news cycle, and it will tell you because it's instantly going out, searching the web, and giving attributions for that. And we know that AI, it can be influenced by what's on the web. I decided to ask Claude, which always gives me a nice encouraging message here at the top, what's the most popular PR measurement platform? And good job, Amex comes up first, of course. And even better, this has been around for a while, so you got to ask, well, is this just trained data? But I asked it, what's the biggest event of the year in PR measurement? And sure enough, here we are, cited both to Amex's website and a third-party source. In case you were wondering if you had FOMO that there might be something better going on, no, AI says this is it. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, maybe you can influence it, but you can't measure it because we all get different answers. In fact, if you try asking AI what's the leading PR measurement framework, even if it says Amex, it might say it in a different way. We'll phrase it differently. Even if I go to ask it again, it will be slightly different. Nobody gets the same result twice. So a lot of people say, hey, with Google, I'd Google, I'd get the same top 10 links, and everybody else used to get the same top 10 links, so you could be scientific there. But with AI, it's non-deterministic, so you can never do that. And in fact, only a small minority of organizations are systematically tracking AI. I know most people in this room are doing it, but I think it's important to remember we're living in a bubble. We're talking about GEO a lot. We're seeing in our LinkedIn feeds because we follow other PR nerds. But most people out there in the business world, I find when I go out there to people who aren't in rooms like this, it's still a new concept to people. And so go back to the objection, it's this wondering like, hey, well, it's random every time, so it's impossible to measure it. And to that, I always think of this quote from many decades ago from Nielsen, the organization that used to measure set-top boxes for TV, which is a reminder that if you don't believe in sampling, the next time you go to get a blood test, you should ask them to take all your blood. And it's a reminder about the power of sampling. We're all happy giving one vial of blood, and we would rather not give any more than we have to. And we have pretty good faith that with one vial, they can know what's going on with the rest of our body. It's the same thing with any kind of measurement. And what's really powerful, and I'm going to show our What is AI reading study later in my presentation, to show that you can actually measure AI. And while each answer is different, it doesn't mean that it's not predictable. When you take a big enough sample, you can predict the realm of what AI is going to say. You can certainly know what sources AI is basing that information on, and it varies by AI platform. And these AI platforms turn out to be, even though they're random and they'll say it a bit different, they're very predictable. Might be like that relative you have at your Thanksgiving table or whatever the equivalent here is in Ireland, where they might tell the same story every year a little bit differently, but they're always going to tell the same story. AI has that kind of appeal. And the third myth, I think the most dangerous myth, and there are lots of dangerous myths or myths about dangerous creatures here in Ireland, but the most dangerous myth is that the PR team should not lead GEO, because it's just SEO 2.0. After all, two of the letters are the same, so why not go with the department that matches 66% of the letters? I'd like to argue that it is a team effort to do GEO across many departments, but PR should be in the lead of that team. They should be leading the charge because PR actually influences what AI says the most. And I'm going to show some stats to back that up in a moment. But first, I really want to make the point. I think there are some people, and again, we're amongst PR nerds. Like it feels like, hey, maybe this has been settled already. And the truth is it hasn't. This is a survey of organizations with who owns GEO. No single department owns it more than 20% of the time. And close to 20% is PR. So PR is the number 2 currently. It's probably all within the margin of error, so you could argue PR is tied for first right now. And this is even according to an SEO company, so they have all the incentive in the world to say it's just the SEO people owning it. But they don't own it. Marketing doesn't own it. It's a melee right now. It has not been decided who owns GEO. And I think this is really the moment of everybody in this room where if we go out there and we can tell the story the best, it should be owned by PR. Amex should be the leading organization behind it. But we have to go and tell the story. And that's why we've commissioned now our 3rd What is AI Reading study. We launched the first one. It's even less than a year ago. It's hard to remember, like this whole field of GEO has only existed for less than 18 months because prior to that, AI wasn't able to do the real-time retrieval and it couldn't get data in real time and you couldn't know where the data came from. So this is a very early field to be thinking about with an organization that's been around for 30 years now. And with that, we've done our 3rd study where we prompt AI tens of millions of times and then analyze all the citations so we can do that sampling and see at scale like what's going on with these AI systems so we can figure them out and understand it. We found, first of all, that 99% of the links come from non-paid sources. So when you're getting that response from AI, and imagine you could have the biggest marketing budget in the world and you don't like what AI is saying about your brand. Say, okay, where can I dump my billions to address this? Well, you can't. You cannot today affect those organic results with money. OpenAI, ChatGPT, they are rolling out an ad platform, but they've said they're going to separate the paid ad part of it from the organic content. So similar to a newspaper, yeah, you could buy an ad in the New York Times, but you can't change what's going to be on that front page cover story with dollars. AI is functioning that same way. Another step from that, we found that 84% of it comes from earned media, third-party sources that you don't control. So that's another really powerful part where I think there are a lot of people kind of thinking that like GEO is all about owned media. And actually, if you look at most of the content coming out there, most of the GEO startups, most of the stuff put out there, it's like, well, what do you do about GEO? Optimize your website, write this piece of content, write your 12th blog post with a listicle to show why you're the best in your category. And that's all important. It's all stuff you should be doing, but it only represents 13% of the citations. It matters more if people are asking about your specific product. So to go back to my original example, if I decided, okay, I want to buy a Nike Pegasus shoe for the Amex run, which I'd had one too many Guinnesses to partake in this morning. But if I did want to do that and I want to ask technical specs about the Nike shoe, it's probably going to cite Nike.com or in more of the cases. But if I ask it, hey, what's the best running shoe? AI is not going to go to Nike to ask it to do research on what's the best running shoe because everything on Nike.com is, of course, biased. That's where it looks to earn media and everything like that. Within all that non-paid, 27% of it is journalistic, so things that you would typically think of as journalism, news websites, et cetera. And then another 24% is corporate blogs and content. And I want to explain this because people always get confused by by this pie chart on the difference between owned media and corporate blogs and content. So the easiest way to explain it is with an example. So let's say I was in charge of GEO for Aer Lingus, and we write a blog post on Aer Lingus's website about what a great airline Aer Lingus is, and then AI cites that. In our study, we'd count that as owned media because it's Aer Lingus writing about Aer Lingus, so it's Aer Lingus. Now let's say the Radisson Hotel does a blog post on like, hey, what are the best ways to get to our location in Ireland? And they write Aer Lingus, Ryanair, Delta. And then I ask AI, hey, what's a great way for me to get to Ireland for Amex? And AI says, oh, you should take Aer Lingus, and it cites the Radisson website. Then that is corporate blogs and content. Because it is a corporate blog, it's Radisson, it's not the New York Times, but it's not Aer Lingus. From Aer Lingus's perspective, it's not their own content because they don't own Radisson. But it shows you that if you combine that with journalistic, that's like 50% is like what other people are writing about you on blogs or journalism. And then a lot of the rest is encyclopedic, so Wikipedia, places like that, what government websites say about you, et cetera. And when you think about this, it starts to feel a lot like a lot like PR. It's like there are all these people who are going to write about you on the web, who you're not paying, who you don't have full control over, but you want to influence them. You can't just drive money at them and tell them what to do. You have to explain who you are, convince what you're doing, build a relationship, and that's what this industry has done for decades, if not centuries. To dig a level deeper, though, and kind of peel back the onion on like what's causing these AI agents to say what they say, we can see what are the top sources by LLM. And I think this really reminds you that like AI, it's not a mystery. It comes down to where do they get their content, and that's the decision made by humans on like what are they going to crawl on the web, as well as who can they strike deals with to get content from when they have to strike a deal. And the thing that really struck us is it's very different across provider, both on weighting. I mean, everything can crawl Wikipedia because it's open source, but ChatGPT weights it much higher than Gemini. Why? Some engineers decided that's how it should be. But that's kind of the world that we have to live in. And then you can see it's quite random. Everyone talks about Reddit being huge, and it is very big, but it's very specific. If you want to influence Gemini, Reddit has a big impact, but today it has less of a big impact on the rest. No surprise that Google Gemini is crawling a lot from YouTube. So does ChatGPT, but Claude doesn't for whatever reason. And it's not so much that this in itself is valuable, because I'll break down. You should be looking at this for your specific industry or brand. But it's just a reminder that like if you want to change what a given LLM is saying about your brand, the way you do that has to be very specific to that LLM. We've also found, going back to that question about how much are journalistic sources being cited, it varies a lot by industry. And I'm about to show a couple industries in our research report that's free for anyone to grab. We do a breakdown in every single industry. But you can see, for whatever reason, media and entertainment is the top sector where AI will look to journalistic sources, followed by finance, then sports. And towards the bottom, concerningly, healthcare looks the least, almost the least towards journalistic sources, education, and industrial. So again, it varies a lot as you slice and dice like how these AI platforms work. And now I figured I'd just kind of pick out two industries as examples for which publications get cited the most within that industry. Consumer goods. YouTube's very big, which is no surprise since a lot of people do videos interviewing, doing unboxing and product reviews, things like that. Amazon's big for Claude, but I think they blocked the rest. Good to see Consumer Reports popping up here. One thing that surprises everybody is Tom's Guide, which has been around for, I think, a couple decades now, and is a publication that many people forgot about. But a lot of what AI likes, or what these AI platforms rely on, are just like what websites are really easy to crawl. And you have sites like the New York Times has Wirecutter that does a lot of consumer reviews. The New York Times is in the process of suing ChatGPT, and while they're in that lawsuit, they're blocking ChatGPT and the rest of them while looking for licensing revenue, and I applaud the Times for doing that. But in the meantime, it means for all of us, we could get an amazing article in the New York Times, which would be a tier A press hit and won't be influential with LLMs at all. And meanwhile, Tom's Guide is. So it really kind of flips how you have to think about PR measurement. I think it goes all the way back to your media list strategy in terms of thinking through which journalists you pitch, where you still want to pitch the New York Times and all the publications you used to. But if everyone you're pitching works for publications that don't get indexed by LLMs, you might want to augment that media list with journalists that do write for publications that get cited a lot by LLMs. Switching to finance, you can see the list of domains totally changes. NerdWallet's big across everything, so if anyone here is from NerdWallet, nice work. Bankrate 2, you can see Forbes is influential with everything but Claude. ChatGPT still loves YouTube. Kiplinger's makes an appearance, The Motley Fool, Reddit still matters. But very different, I'll just back up, than consumer goods. Of course, with a product, I mean, we have Generative Pulse, or you could even just on your own go to LLMs and ask it about your brand. But this might really vary for any given brand, and that's why I think it's really important to think of yourself. You know, it's funny, a lot of people have been calling themselves like engineers lately. Everyone's been saying they're a marketing engineer or a go-to-market engineer. But I think in a way, it's less that we're engineers because nobody really knows how this works exactly. I mean, how the LLMs work is even the people who make the LLMs say they don't fully understand how it works, which is a little concerning. But if even the engineers making the LLMs don't understand how they work, we can't engineer it. I think it's better we think of ourselves as scientists, PR scientists, measurement scientists, where we're running experiments and seeing, hey, if we keep asking AI about our brand, about the things consumers will ask about us, about our product category, what can we learn? How can we get that sample, like using the blood sample analogy, how do I get that sample to understand what each LLM is saying about my brand, about my industry, so that I can come up with a coherent strategy. In speaking of strategy, I think this is what we all have to combat. I think there are a lot of uninformed CEOs and leaders thinking like, okay, well, we've had an SEO department for many years. Now we just run the SEO playbook on GEO. I think we really have to get people to understand that LLMs work fundamentally differently than search engines did, that it's not just about optimizing my website, which is pretty much what SEO is about, but it's about that 84% stat, earned media, like what are other people saying about us, that owned media is only a small slice of the pie. And also, I think the stakes are higher now because people, it used to be I'd Google what are the top running shoes. I'd get 5 running shoes, and then I'd read the product reviews myself. Google wouldn't tell me this one's better. It would just be like, here's the most relevant, second most relevant, et cetera. Now with AI, it's saying, hey, here's, based on everything I know about you, here's a running shoe I think you should buy. And even if I don't trust AI, it's still subliminal, right? Like that's our first impression with a brand, and it's hard to shake the first impression. Just like if a friend tells you, this is a great running shoe, you might still research it and try it out, but you're predisposed to like it or be suspicious based on what you're told when you're first introduced to something. So it's more important, and this is what we think it should look like, where all the things that corporate communications has been doing in terms of building relationships with journalists, reaching out to new influencers in journalism, even the role PR has taken in podcasting, as well as measurement and just kind of looking at all the way third parties perceive your brands really matter for GEO, and it's kind of a perfect matchup. But I think we don't get credit unless we can tell that story and have the data to back it up that what we're doing is really influencing GEO. And then also to tweak our methods, like that example I gave with thinking about what media lists you target for the LLMs to show that like what you're doing has GEO and this idea of influencing LLMs in mind. And then I think even a bigger point, I'm not sure which cliff walk you'll encounter this monolith in. I think it's one of the more obscure ones here in Ireland, but I know it exists. But I think we're at this point in time where AI feels kind of like that monolith that we all saw in 2001, where all the humanoids are just not sure what it is and how it works. And like I said, no one knows exactly how these LLMs work. If you talk to the founders of any of the frontier labs, they admit too that they're surprised by what's happening. I think what's exciting now about this idea with GEO is that we can be the ones to sample it, measure it, understand it. And I think also, lots been talked about AI. I'm pretty sure I won't be the last one to mention it here at AMAC. But I think there's this feeling like where it can be kind of scary and disempowering that like, because we don't understand it and because we know AI might have too much influence on people, that it's scary. And it is. But at the same time, I think this is what's exciting and empowering, in that it's not just that AI can influence us, it's that we can influence AI. And if AI's spreading misinformation about our brands, if it doesn't understand the truth for our product category, if it's not recommending the right product, everybody here in this room and everyone that AMAC influences with the principles that it's putting out on GEO can influence AI and help correct areas where AI is wrong, counter misinformation there, and shape the story AI tells. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody and offer this QR code if anyone wants to download the report.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Greg. I know there are probably a lot of questions. We have time for a couple. Who would like the first question for Greg? I can see a hand here. The light is perfectly in my eye, so I can't tell who's. It's Eric.
Is that the fire alarm?
I think that was AI pulling the fire alarm because it didn't like the message.
We'll go ahead and take the question.
The first question is there a fire? And it sounds like the answer is hopefully no.
So here we go. Greg, thank you very, very much. If I remember correctly, YouTube was quoted as a likely source behind recommendations in several of the different use cases. But in the beginning of the slides, if I remember correctly, only like 2 or 3% of the hits was based on user-generated content or social. Why do you think it's such a discrepancy in those? Like, I would assume it would be much more user-generated content if YouTube is such a big source.
Yeah, it's a good question. The thing is, within a lot of those other sources, they're split up across many, many domains. So like the journalistic chunk, which is about 25%, it's not like that's all one publication. That journalistic chunk is made up of hundreds of thousands of publications, so it's diffused a lot. Whereas even though collectively user-generated content's a smaller percentage, it's much more concentrated in just a couple platforms.
Great. Time for one other question. Perfect. Over here. Do we have the microphone? Amelia? Molly. So close.
Thanks so much, Greg. Quick question on source citation. What did you see in the experiment you ran related to market variability? Did you see any differences from one sector to the other from a in-media market perspective in terms of what was being cited?
Yeah, we saw within huge variance within every market, because it was in each market AI would search for publications that are like most, that it deems most credible within that publication or within that sector. Plus, we found that a lot of times just how you kind of, the source of who covers a given set of brands and outlets like varies a lot between sector to sector. And sometimes too, like the nuance of it, like you're probably going to go to YouTube for like watching a product unboxing, but you're not going to go to YouTube as much to learn about the oil and gas industry, let's say. So because that, we found a lot of variance in sectors, and that's why in the report we have dozens of sector breakouts to show which sources are most cited by sector.
Great question, Ben. Thank you. Round of applause for Greg, please.